Right now on KGW News, an explosion in Northwest Portland sends flames tearing through homes. Also tonight,
and patients and their loved ones are going to lose if this bill passes.
So how did this contentious fight end in compromise? The big deal between nurses and hospitals that both sides say will improve care. And a first view of our flying future at PDX, at least once the dust clears.
Are they bringing back the old carpet?
But first, Donald Trump indicted as he becomes the first former president to face criminal charges. So could he still take back the White House? Good evening, and we begin with the Secret Service now talking to New York authorities about former President Trump's surrender. The Presidential Protection Detail will not be the ones to arrest him, but they're working on what they consider the safest plan to get him to the Manhattan courthouse, likely next Tuesday afternoon for his arraignment. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko. We're also hearing some reaction tonight from fellow Republicans, including former Vice President Mike Pence, after a New York grand jury indicted Trump today. Alice Barr with the update from Washington.
Tonight, political shockwaves as former President Donald Trump has been indicted by a Manhattan grand jury. The historic first criminal case against a former president prompting a host of new questions. The indictment is still under seal, so we don't know what charges he'll face. But it stems from Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's investigation into a hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels during the 2016 presidential campaign and how that payment was documented. Mr. Trump denies Daniels' claims of a 2006 affair. Tonight, the former president calling the indictment, quote, political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history. Republican leaders attacking the Manhattan district attorney and coming to Mr. Trump's defense, including his former vice president, Mike Pence, now a potential 2024 rival, telling CNN tonight.
The unprecedented indictment of a former president of the United States on a campaign finance issue is an outrage.
Former President Trump has declared he's running for the White House again in 2024, and polls show he is the Republican frontrunner. He has made clear a criminal indictment in this or the other investigations he still faces regarding the 2020 election and classified documents will not stop his campaign, though it will loom over the months ahead. Two officials familiar with the matter tell NBC News former President Trump is tentatively set to appear before a judge next Tuesday afternoon. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
And this indictment could have huge political and legal consequences for the former president, but could it prevent him from taking office if he is elected? Our Verify team looked into the question and found out yes, Donald Trump, or for that matter, anybody else, could legally still become president despite a criminal charge or conviction. Now, according to the Constitution, there are only 3 eligibility requirements to become commander-in-chief. You have to be a natural-born American citizen, you have to be at least 35, and have been a U.S. resident for at least 14 years. That's it, those 3, no other requirements. The Supreme Court further ruled neither Congress nor the states can add new requirements on top of what the Constitution already says, which means the only way to change the rules would be a constitutional amendment. We'll keep you posted. All right, let's get to local headlines. And new tonight, a big compromise both nurses and hospital administrators hope will help solve the industry's staffing crisis. Alma McCarty's in the newsroom with an update tonight. Alma.
David, this whole thing boils down to staff to patient ratios. Nurses pushed for them, but hospitals worry about making them work in the ever-changing conditions that they see. After months of talks, they came up with an amendment all about flexibility. Out of a series of bills proposed this legislative session intended to remedy a hospital staffing crisis in Oregon, disagreement stemmed from this one, mandating nurse-to-patient ratios and imposing penalties should hospitals fail to meet them. A committee heard some emotional testimony from nurses a month ago about the current working conditions.
Could you imagine what it feels like to be proficient and competent at a job you love, yet not have the ability to do your best because you're continually being pushed to do more and more by your employer?
You're pushing these people past their breaking point, and that should worry you.
At that time, hospital admins and the Oregon Association of Hospitals and Health Systems spoke out against the bill, believing it would threaten access to care.
Patients and their loved ones are going to lose if this bill passes.
Several weeks later, both sides reached an agreement, introducing a lengthy consensus amendment at a work session Tuesday.
I am very proud, and I'm not exaggerating about this, of the advocates that are here with me who worked diligently together for months to find solutions to a very tough problem and land on something that we believe is going to work for all of the parties.
Key components to the newly amended bill include a nurse-to-patient ratio written into state law that varies depending on hospital setting, from the ER to the ICU.
1 nurse to 1 patient for trauma patients in the emergency department during active labor and delivery and in operating rooms. 1 nurse to 2 patients in intensive care units. 1 nurse to 3 patients in intermediate care units.
The bill also establishes groups within hospitals that will adopt staffing plans that work for their particular workplace. The enforcement of the ratios will be based on complaints, and there's built-in flexibility to deviate from the ratios if necessary.
A limited number will be allowed for a limited number of time, because sometimes it's the right thing to do to take in that extra patient.
Safety is kind of a low bar, right? Nobody wants to just think I'm only keeping patients safe.
Matt Calzia is a registered nurse and works for the Oregon Nurses Association. He said while they hope to bring nurses back to the bedside with this bill, it's aimed at keeping them from leaving in the first place.
You want to really engage holistically and know that you're providing really high quality care that's going to help folks. And hopefully, we're going to start moving in that direction.
So the bill is now moving forward. Another work session is scheduled for Monday. If it eventually becomes law, the ratios themselves would not go into effect until June 2024, with enforcement going into effect later still. We will continue to follow this and other healthcare bills as they progress through the legislature. David?
Thanks, Alma. Appreciate you staying across this for us. Let's get you caught up now on tonight's other headlines, starting with fire officials trying to figure out what caused a home in northwest Portland this morning to explode. You see it there. Crews say the fire engulfed the house in the Forest Heights neighborhood before it spread to the neighboring home. Officials say it doesn't appear anybody was inside and no one was injured. In Idaho, the state Senate approved a bill today to try to stop some people from crossing state lines to get an abortion. The bill would make it a crime for anybody helping a teenager cross the border without the parent's permission. Right now, the closest Planned Parenthood clinic for those living near the Oregon-Idaho border is in Ontario, Oregon. The Idaho House must sign off on these amendments to the bill before it goes to the governor's desk. And check out these new heavy-duty barriers in southeast Portland along Powell Boulevard. You might remember this was the same place where the city placed other barriers, lighter ones, which were toppled over in an effort to stop homeless people from camping on frontage roads in high-crash corridors. 2 sections of the frontage roads there have been closed temporarily for cleanup between 74th and 75th and 77th to 79th. Well, developing tonight, the mother of a 7th grade girl is suing the Centennial School District, seeking $1 million in damages, alleging staff did not do enough after her daughter was repeatedly bullied and attacked at school. These videos are part of the evidence the family says that they're citing in the lawsuit. It says the student was attacked multiple times and months apart, resulting at one point in a broken wrist and a concussion. Emily James, the girl's aunt who talked to us on behalf of the family, says the online bullying was even worse than the physical assaults. James says they're now homeschooling her niece, who takes special ed classes for a learning disability.
It's actually robbed her of her childhood. She's afraid to leave the house. She's afraid to go to the grocery store. What broke my heart was doing the research on bullying that leads to suicide and how many children have to die before we change something. Like, when do those numbers matter? Because they're staggering.
The spokesperson for the district says because the lawsuit involves a minor, it cannot provide more details. In a statement, though, the district says it, quote, remains focused on the academic and social well-being of students and is committed to ensuring they have a safe and secure learning environment.